You're listening to the Tuesday Review live on 98.9 Northwest FM. I'm Nathan, as always, joined by James. What's something that's made you happy this week, James?
Well, it's probably something me and Callum are going to talk about anyway, so I'll just say we saw Barry Lyndon and then we'll talk about it a bit later, yeah.
Also joined by Callum. What's something that's made you happy this week, Callum?
Ditto.
Barry Lyndon, very good.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's as we'll get into, it's a special film, and I haven't seen it in well over 15 years, and to see it restored
We'll talk about it.
on a cinema screen was a joy. Yeah.
As for something that's made me happy, I don't know, a bit of a stretch. I guess I'm just going to give a cop-out answer and say the rehearsal again.
Yeah. I mean,
that makes me happy.
Yeah,
and uncomfortable.
It
gives me some feels.
It's
not all good ones.
Yeah, it's so amazing, but it's just the most. I was holding my breath the whole episode. I'm like, Jesus, it's just so cringe.
Yeah,
it's like on another level.
Anyway, so yeah, we'll move on. Alan hopefully will be able to make it tonight, but he's running late, so we'll get straight into it. Before we start, Callum has some release announcements.
That's right. So Kismet has just released their distribution schedule for this year, or at least this period of the year. Because it's festival season, so movies are getting shown and shopped and sold and whatnot.
Khan still on, or is it just finished?
Still on, I believe. Or
God.
If only we
Not
could
that
be there.
Khan.
Hideo
Not that
Kojima was there. He got invited, I think.
Yeah.
So that's nice. Anyway, Dangerous Animals is coming out on the 12th of June, and that's a thriller, which looks really
It's
interesting.
an Australian movie, I believe.
Yes, correct. Together is in cinema, the body horror movie starring Dave Franco and Alison Brie is in cinemas July 31st.
That one looks good.
Mr. Burton, starring
Toby Jones?
Correct.
Nice. Toby Jones is always good.
Toby Jones, Harry Lorty, Leslie Manville, directed by Mark Evans, is coming out on August the 14th.
Nice.
So yeah, a bit of a packed middle of the year for films. And Myth hasn't even,
Oh yeah, when they announced that schedule,
Lordy knows,
it's gonna be packed. Yeah.
So yeah, keep your eye out on these films, both local and international, from Kismet, because they're doing the Lord's work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I guess we'll start with what you boys seen, Barry Lyndon.
Yeah.
So this is a movie James has avoided for many years.
Yeah. So I'm a massive Kubrick fan, obviously, but I deliberately avoided watching Barry Lyndon because I was like, well, I want to see it properly. Like, I've seen all of his other movies. That's the only one I haven't seen. I didn't want to watch it on DVD. Blu-ray, apparently the transfer wasn't that great.
I didn't like the Blu-ray transfer myself. Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, maybe I'll wait for the 4K, or, ideally I'd love to see it on the big screen. So I waited for decades, and finally, now they've got the 4K restoration, which I would like to get on disc. But the Astor was playing it over the weekend, so Callum and I decided to go because I'm like, well, it's finally perfect opportunity.
It wasn't really a choice for you, James.
No,
more of a spiritual calling.
Yeah, it's like I had to.
Yeah.
I've waited this long, and for it to be playing, I was like, I have to go.
Yeah.
So it was really good. The restoration was really nice. It looked fantastic. Sounded really good. And yeah, it was just weird seeing a Kubrick film that I hadn't seen before. And also, I was surprised at, obviously I knew it was going to look beautiful, so that part of it, didn't surprise me or whatever. But I was surprised how humorous it was. It's quite a funny movie.
It has a lighter edge on it. Yeah.
Yeah, especially because I think it comes between Clockwork Orange and The Shining, I think. So
he needed to have a good time in between those movies.
Yeah. So yeah, it was a good experience, and it was a cool sort of, it was cool filling in that gap that I had in Kubrick's filmography.
It's interesting because people always give it as an example of a movie that looks beautiful because, everyone was, the lenses. That's what everyone talks about.
Yeah, the
lenses,
candles.
They made the lenses and whatnot.
Yeah.
It's one thing to hear people talk about how beautiful it looks, but then when you're in the cinema, you're watching it. There's that famous saying they use for Kurosawa movies. every frame's a painting. And this is like a literal example of that, where there'll just be a shot on the screen. It'll just be like, it'll be an establishing shot, or it'll just be like some landscape shot.
Yeah.
And it's just like the most gorgeous thing you've ever seen in your life.
100%.
Like, it's like I don't know. Like, everyone knows that famous shot of the
him in the chair.
Yeah, and him and his friends are like lounging.
Yeah.
And it looks like it's like actually a painting. Well, like a good quarter of the film looks like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's not a particularly special shot in the scope of his film.
Yeah.
Like, there's a scene where someone's dying on screen, and it's like the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen in my entire life.
Oh yeah.
And you know what I mean? That's just the whole film.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Kubrick really was just on another level.
But yeah, specifically this film, it's like when people say it looks great, it's not an exaggeration.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of people throw phrases, like, and, you know, us included sometimes, I guess, just throw stuff around. Like, oh, it's, you know, it's the best. It looks like this. It sounds like this. But this one actually has the chops to pull off its well-regarded legacy, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because, like, you rewatch it and it still holds up. Like $1 million.
Yeah. Well, now that I've finally seen it, I'm like, oh, I can't wait to watch it again.
Yeah.
You know, because
the next time it comes to the Asda in 15 years.
No, well, now the 4K...
You've ripped it off, now you can rewatch it again.
Yeah, it's like, now I've broken the seal, so I'm like, well, it's just going to...
Can always watch it on a projector sometime in the future.
No, but they're doing the 4K disc, so I'm like, you know, I'd love to get that and watch it again, because, you know, I've seen all these other movies so many times. And
also, I wonder if there are any special features on the disc as well. That'd be interesting.
I'm sure there will be. Criterion's releasing the US version, so I'm sure there'll be something on there. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to watching it again. Actually, I have to get like more Kubricks on 4K because I keep waiting. I'm like, I don't want to spend all this money on individual 4Ks and then they release a box set, or you know, and they're so everything's so expensive now. It's ridiculous. So
I like the fact that. I don't know. Obviously, there's not an intermission if you have a Blu-ray at home. You know,
I mean,
it might still be there. Yeah, but
there is an intermission on the Blu-ray at home. It's called the pause button, mate.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna make that joke.
Wait for a scene to end and hit pause before the new scene.
But I like the fact that when we saw the movie, because like a lot of his movies have intermissions in the cinema. Like, you know, if you go to see the cinema, this one did too, which was nice. You know, for people like myself with small blood.
Yeah.
You can, and also this. I ran to the toilet. I came back and the movie started like that.
Yeah, you were right on time.
So that was nice.
Yeah.
Or if you're watching 2001: A Space Odyssey and you had a few too many drinks, like me, at the IMAX, and you're like, oh no, intermission time! Yeah.
Did they have the intermission in IMAX?
Yeah, they did.
Yeah, they did. Yeah.
I was able to run to the toilet. It was a good time.
Nice.
But
yeah, it was a really, really good experience.
What was your favorite part of Barry Lyndon?
I think I really liked the duel at the end.
That's my dad's favorite part as well.
Yeah, in that, I guess it's like a little stable or a barn.
Yeah.
I mean, like we said, the whole movie is beautiful, but
how do you pick your favorite child?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, when the movie's full of beautiful moments and great scenes, but I think in a movie that's not it's not really a war movie or an action movie, but all the battle scenes and duel scenes are really great.
Yeah. The boxing scene's great. That's like something straight out of A Clockwork Orange in the camera work.
Yeah,
it's very frenetic. It's got that energy to it that I don't really like, but it's effective.
Well, there's difference between handheld and shaky cam, and there's a difference between when Kubrick does it and when some hack does it in a superhero movie.
I think when Kubrick does it, it embodies the chaos of the moment. That like that kind of, you know, it's a fight between two people. They're both trying to hit each other. Or whatever. So it's got that uncertain anxiety to it that you'd have if you're in a fight.
And they're being, they're in the square with all the other soldiers. And they're being pushed around. And
I'm still not a huge fan of it, but he does it well, and he does that kind of stuff well in A Clockwork Orange as well.
Yeah.
But my favorite parts are the two favorite parts I have are the one where his friend dies in the after the first big battle they have.
Yeah.
Because that shot, like I said, breathtakingly beautiful.
Yeah.
Like, and it's like not a nice shot to look at because like it's full of suffering, like you know, on screen. But like the framing of the shot is just amazing. But the other favorite part I have is when he leaves his town and he's in the woods. And he meets those two people.
Oh, the bandit. Yeah,
the bandits. I just love the vibrant greenery on the screen. Like, the colors pop so much more than, like, if they made Barry Lyndon... I know I'm sorry to say this.
We say it every week.
Apologies to listeners. If this movie was made today, it would look drab. It'd be kind of brown looking, whatever. the colors pop and they're so vibrant and beautiful to look at.
Yeah.
You know, it's a feast of the senses, this film.
Yeah. Yeah, I was saying to Callum afterwards, it's like, it's a shame we never got Kubrick's...
AI.
Not just AI, Napoleon.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, he was developing that epic, like, Napoleon movie that was trying to get made. And then he never got to make it. And I guess he did Barry Lyndon instead, which is a very, different movie, even though it is a period sort of epic. But yeah, it would have been great to see his Napoleon. But yeah, he was also developing AI before he passed away, and then Spielberg, I think, who was like helping him produce it or whatever, ended up directing that movie. Which I still want to see what Kubrick would have done with it, because as much as Spielberg says he kept to Kubrick's vision or whatever, he's like, they're just such different filmmakers.
Yeah.
And it would have been really interesting to see what Kubrick would have done with the modern technology.
Could have ruined him.
I know. Yeah, it might have been really awful. I mean, I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly,
screen everywhere.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, he was actually trying to create a full like robot person to put on the screen.
James Cameron fell from grace.
Yeah, well, a lot of we've talked about it. I think we were talking about it recently, actually. A lot of directors who, whether they used to be known for great effects films or not, have, when it comes to CGI, they just lose their
drive.
Like, not their drive. It's like they just have no idea how to use it on screen. They get overly either comfortable or lazy with just
or just the studio says we'll fix it later, and they're just like, okay.
But it would have been interesting to see what he did with it, because I have to rewatch it. It's been a long time since I've seen it, but I mean, it's an okay movie, but it's not.
I gotta rewatch it too.
Yeah, and especially Kubrick's all of his movies are so great. So yeah, it would have been interesting. What could have been?
Yeah. Shall we move on?
Yeah, might as well.
I guess now we'll talk about a director who doesn't let CG get the better of him.
Mm-hmm.
Christopher McQuarrie.
Yes.
And Tom Cruise in the new Mission Impossible: Final Reckoning.
That's right. We went cruising over the weekend.
Cruising for Cruise.
Yeah. That would have been a good movie with him in it, cruising with Tom Cruise.
Ooh.
Different movie.
Movie. Can you imagine him instead of Al Pacino?
I think the reason cruising works so well is because Pacino has this paranoia because he wasn't comfortable on set.
Tom Cruise would have been comfortable.
Maybe too comfortable.
No, I think that
all these guys are just having a good time.
I think that he would have picked up on the vibe, and he would have be like, "This is great for the shot." Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, because I think that he Pacino comes from a different time. Is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Pacino would have been like, "What's that rubber fist doing?"
I think Cruise could have pulled it off.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, I think it's a different movie though. It's a different energy.
Yeah.
Anyway,
well, I mean, we Richard Gere was supposed to do it. Remember, we talked
and he
about
would have done it great.
Yeah, that would have been a different movie as well, but that would have been great too.
Yeah.
Anyway,
we're
not talking about Cruise. Mission Impossible is a very different franchise. A different
to its detriment almost.
Okay, so it's obviously. Are we going full spoilers?
No, let's keep it spoiler free, and then
yeah.
if we want to announce spoilers later, we can time code it for the podcast.
I will say, I guess, spoiler warning for Fallout and Dead Reckoning
for the previous movies. Yes,
and I guess 1 through whatever.
Yeah, all the previous movies are fair game, I think, at this point.
Yeah. So obviously, this is at this stage the final movie of the franchise so far. And Christopher McQuarrie again does his best not to let CG get the better of him. I think, in a way, I was telling Callum, and this is probably an unpopular opinion, Christopher McQuarrie and Christopher Nolan are they like pretty much the only two directors that are just like, I will not use CG unless I absolutely have to. You know, like they have a lot of shared DNA in their stunts.
Yeah.
I think Christopher Nolan is the ultimate life form of that style.
Nolan takes it to the next level, because even the last few Macquarie Mission Impossibles had quite a lot of CGI. Yeah. Just not to an extent of like a lot of other movies or superhero movies where it's just...
Obviously, he's not at the level of the GOAT, because no one is.
Oh, Nolan, yeah.
But... it's like, it's admirable, and I think history will judge him quite well.
But I think it's also... I remember we talked about this with I think it might have been Top Gun or another movie. It was probably Top Gun and Dead Reckoning. Like, the only reason these kinds of heavy stunt practical movies are being made is because of Tom Cruise. If Christopher McQuarrie didn't have Tom Cruise,
they wouldn't be happening.
And it was, you know, he had another leading man, the studio wouldn't probably be as willing.
Also, there's a reason all these movies are produced by Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
He puts up the money. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, he's a large creative force behind it. And what reason why?
Also, the studios are probably just like, look, we're not going to do this because the insurance risk and everything else. So Tom Cruise is like, I'll put the money up. I don't care.
Yeah. Like, none of that. Because I guess him and McQuarrie, like, run, I don't know if you want to use the phrase, run the company that produces these films, whatever. They have the say of the crew that, like, work on the films. There's a famous story that, like, you know, Matt Damon's told at least once, where he talks about how Tom Cruise manages to get the money to do the stunts, let alone perform them. Is that, like, apparently for the Burj Khalifa one, the stunt, he wanted to do it, and the safety man said no. And so Tom Cruise fires the safety guy and gets another one on who said yes. So it's like, there's probably a lot of that where it's like, listen, this is going to happen, whether it's you who approves it or me and McQuarrie find someone else who'll give us the money or the permission or whatever. So it's probably, I'm just as fascinated in Tom Cruise as a producer / manager as I am with him as an actor, because I think that he takes the producing role very seriously. And I'm fascinated to know because he has the mind for the business, not just the acting. He's talked about it before about, like, he goes to meetings, he's in boardrooms, he's talking to executives all the time. Yeah. He's getting things done. He was doing an interview lately because, of course, you know, the festivals are on and there's all these premieres happening and Tom Cruise is everywhere online right now. So someone asked him a question about him linking up, I should say, with Michael B. Jordan. Because he really enjoyed Sinners and they met at a red carpet. And so Tom Cruise was like, oh, we're going to make a movie together. He's really excited. And then he was talking about the fresh blood in the industry. How he doesn't want to be the last action star, in his words. You know, it's like, and he wants the industry to succeed and he wants to lift up people to be making movies of the quality that he's making. And he said that his store is always open.
The problem with that is that we've exited the era of the movie star and we're now in the era of the franchise / IP star.
Correct. But I'm interested in, like, Tom Cruise has a specific set of skills, much like Liam Neeson from Taken. Taken?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, you know, he can drive cars real fast, real fancy like. He can fly cars in crazy ways.
Fly cars? I mean, yeah.
Fly cars, fly planes.
I mean, okay, I'll allow it.
Put him in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and I'm sure he will fly a car. But you know what I mean, right? Like, and also, I guess you could say he flies cars when he's, like, you know, going off
jumps.
Yeah, we'll still pay it.
I'm a dummy, I'm sorry. But you know what I mean? Like, he can do all that stuff because he's Tom Cruise, because he's
an exception.
That's right. He spent his life honing his body and his mind to allow him to do things like this in such a convincing way to put them in film. And it's also he did
that famous Top Gun story with Miles Teller about the workout, getting ready for Top Gun.
He's put all his eggs in this basket, whereas, you know, some other actors who might do their own stunts, they don't exclusively. That's not their whole thing.
Yeah, they don't have that death wish.
Or at least they don't have, like, the, I don't know, the drive or time or whatever to, you know, learn how to certify, get their like helicopter license in record time.
Well, it's fascinating. He did an interview recently, I believe it was on Jimmy Fallon, where they talked about behind the scenes of the small plane stunts in Final Reckoning, and they talked about the preparation time. Like, they did lots of prep. They had to figure out the G-forces, the safe ways for him to lean out of a plane and that type of thing. And it took hours and hours and hours.
I would hope so.
But that's why, that it pays off because we always complain, you know, like in a lot of quote unquote action movies that come out these days, it's just like shaky cam and CGI. And it's just like, what are they doing? You know, they used to plan this stuff out. They used to build sets. They used to have stuntmen and practical effects. And, the Mission Impossible and Tom Cruise is the only person really doing a lot of that stuff anymore.
And, like, if you hear him, he's done talks before and he's mentioned it in magazines and whatnot. He talks about how the audience deserves to be entertained and they deserve to get value for their money. And I think that's like an older world view of cinema. Whereas, like, now, I think the prevailing view from most of the studios is you want to entertain audiences, yes, but you also want to have a product that doesn't cost too much, that has, CG, for example,
The problem
cheap.
is
You want to be churning them
But
out.
the problem is those movies cost $1 bajillion. So
yeah, but they don't. Yeah, but everyone knows they don't really. Do you know what I mean?
Well, yeah.
What I'm saying is, like, Tom Cruise, the reason the Mission Impossible franchise is as big as it is because people know that when you go to watch them, you're seeing
The money on screen.
the money on screen and also the blood on the screen, for lack of a better expression.
That also raises a good point. Tom Cruise is doing the movies the right way and financing them himself.
Well, I don't think he's financing himself.
Okay, at least a little bit.
He's the producer, yeah. He's
well,
in charge of...
He's getting, he's...
I mean, he would have more control.
He's probably Hollywood's most bankable star at this point.
I mean, it'd be interesting to see, like, you've got directors like M. Night who make the movies themselves. They put their own money in, and I'm like...
Yeah, but those are very
smaller movies, but it would be more interesting to see a big movie like this kind of done with an honest spreadsheet, an honest balance. Because how much of these... We all know, Hollywood accounting. I'd be interested to know, like, how much would it really cost versus how much does it they tell you?
I mean, anytime there's a big studio involved, I'm sure there's some shenanigans going on. But yeah, at least with the last few Mission Impossibles and Top Gun, like, it's like, this is what big budget movies should be.
Yes, correct.
Practical effects, big action scenes, stunts,
iconic stuff.
Memorable.
Memorable, yeah. It's not just a car chase. It's... Do you remember that car chase is it the Fiat?
Yeah, in
what I mean? Like,
Dead Reckoning, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. It's like I can say that car chase with that car, and you're like, I know the one. It's not just...
Also, it's like the James Bond... The James Bond movies used to be like that, where you say, wow, that stunt, that action scene was so great. And they don't really make action movies like that anymore, because now most movies that come out are just superhero movies with CGI where, like, it's just brown and shaky and there's computer stuff flying around. And it's not memorable. And there aren't really any big action blockbusters anymore. So Mission Impossible is sort of the last of those, and has been putting, as someone who's a massive James Bond fan,
gives you a little bit of hope.
Well, was putting those, the last few Craig movies to shame. So I think now that if Mission Impossible is coming to an end, and Amazon's taking over James Bond, it's like, I think this is really the end of an era. Especially, Tom Cruise isn't getting younger, so he might do a couple more action type movies, maybe a couple more stunts here.
I just hope he doesn't.
But after that,
I hope he doesn't go full Liam Neeson and just continue to do it when it's sad.
Yeah, but Liam Neeson always did, like, what was even though they went to the cinema, like, basically straight to DVD action, and he was just churning them out.
He just got lucky with Taken.
Yeah. Whereas Tom Cruise is like, I don't think he'd
go that.
Crank out all those.
He's talked before about
generic...
he wants to work with auteurs again and so on, and he's got a sci-fi movie in the works. Yeah. So it's like he does seem to be, and there will be stunts in that because it's and they're doing the deep sea diving training apparently. So I think that he's interested in keeping it fresh because, again, our man, Tom Cruise, wants to entertain the audience. And he's going to do that by providing us movies we want to see.
All right. Look, we are going to talk about the movie, I swears. But we'll go to a very quick break and we'll be back with Mission Impossible, we swear, right after these short messages. You are back on the Tuesday Review Live on 98.9 Northwest FM. We are now joined by Alan. How you going, Alan? What's something's made you happy recently?
Something's made me happy recently. I finished Dune. The book, the audiobook.
The trilogy or the first
book?
How'd you like it?
And I liked it more than the movie.
Yeah. I mean,
How do they handle footnotes? Did I ask you the question?
So, basically,
audiobook.
There are multiple voice actors, and the predominant voice acting is done by, obviously, a male voice. And then the Baron Harkonnen's voice changes depending on what he's doing. Like, if he's in the Cone of Silence, he gets a different voice. I think it's like, I don't know if the guy's still alive, but it sounds a lot like the guy who played Mufasa in the Lion King movies.
James Earl Jones.
Yeah.
Darth Vader?
Darth Vader, my guy.
Yeah, kind of similar to that. So, like, the guy who's narrating normally speaks for the Baron, but then in certain situations, the Baron just changes voice. It's pretty cool.
That's weird.
Yeah. Anyway.
It's done well.
Yeah, and there's obviously a feminine voice as well, and that is in the footnotes, especially from My Father's House by the Princess Irulan, or I think there's a few different books there or stories that they reference, and I think that would be the footnotes. I'm assuming
Very good.
that are going down. But
Anyway, Mission Impossible.
Yeah. So yeah, Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning.
is it really the Final Reckoning?
Well, remains
see.
to be seen.
Yeah.
It wraps up some plot lines, but it leaves it open, I guess, enough for further narratives.
Yeah. So
One thing I did appreciate about this movie is I did like the fact that it brought some characters back from the first movie. I did like that.
Well, I think they should have done more of that. So when we saw Dead Reckoning 2023, we all really enjoyed that, and it ends. It was supposed to be. It was Dead Reckoning Part 1, and then the last chapter was supposed to be Dead Reckoning Part 2, and it ended not on a cliffhanger, but it was like in the middle of the story, kind of. And
I don't know why they changed it. I just would have left it as Part 2.
I mean,
because it's telling the same story as
yeah,
Part
but
1.
see, at the time we thought they were filming them back to back, and it was like all written. But then Dead Reckoning came out, and it was like, well, that wasn't true. They still had to write it and get it made, and then the writer's strike happened, and that delayed it more. And it was just like, what's going on with this? Like, if you're gonna do a Part 1, Part 2 ending, write it and shoot it all at the same time, so it is truly one movie just cut into 2 parts, and then release them 6 months to a year apart, whatever. Don't do this thing where it's like, oh, we've set everything up, and now we have to wait to see if we get funding and see if we where the story goes, because we haven't even written it yet. So I think that was a problem with after Dead Reckoning came out, we were all so excited about to see where this goes, and if it is truly the last one, then they changed, there was the delays, they changed the name to just Dead Reckoning, and the last movie is now The Final Reckoning. And so it was like even more of a, is this truly the ending? Is this really going to wrap everything up? Is this going to be a satisfying conclusion? And, we had the same, in the same year we had Spider-Verse and Fast and Furious 10. As like both of those were like Part 1, Part 2 endings, and it's like they were massive cliffhangers. But the end of Dead Reckoning was like, all right, at least it sort of had an ending, and it was like, we thought it was leading into something, and we were all really hyped, and we all kept talking about how much we wanted to see the movie and how much you guys love Tom Cruise and this, that, and the other. I don't think it lived up to the hype for me personally.
Same.
And I think on a script level, it falls apart. It really, really left a lot to be desired, and it does not feel like an ending or a climax or a goodbye. It feels like a middle
movie.
Exactly. Yeah. And Callum and I saw it at IMAX, which was really cool because obviously you want to see these crazy stunts, and
if you're gonna go cruising in style.
Yeah, exactly. Go big or go home. So we saw it at IMAX, and as good, it was a good experience. It looked and sounded nice, but unfortunately, for a 3-hour movie, unlike Fallout or Dead Reckoning, there's only like 2 major action set pieces in Final Reckoning.
Yeah, but I thought the pacing was still quite good.
Disagree. Hard disagree. The first hour of the movie, nothing really happens. They introduce all these new characters, and you're like, what is going on? It's not till they get to the submarine where it's like, okay, here we go. This is what we want. And then the submarine sort of action scene is one of the best parts of the movie.
I think you guys just had a bad time at IMAX.
No. So my issue,
we had a good time.
My issue is that there's a lot of I'm going to push this word.
Philosophical.
There's a lot of
philosophizing.
Yes,
is that a word?
Yeah, it is now. We'll pay it. There's a lot of dialogue. There's a lot of exposition. There's a lot of characters, like interacting with each other on screen, and like not enough action. Whereas I feel like Dead Reckoning had more action.
Yeah, it was. Like
I think that it needed to be more
set
balanced.
Pieces spread out over.
I think that the character development should have been spread between Dead Reckoning and Final Reckoning, whereas it seems to be kind of heavy loaded on the Final Reckoning side of things.
Well, I mean, they don't really do a lot of development in Final Reckoning. I mean,
but the other issue I have is on a script level. characters are introduced just because they were present at some place, and then they become part of the team. So, you know,
but they don't even become part of the team. That's kind of the problem.
But you know what I mean, right?
Yeah,
like a character is in a situation. I can't spoil it.
Yeah.
But someone gets broken out of an institution in the film.
Well,
And then one of the security guards is like, "Guess I'm in the impossible mission force." I'm like, really?
That was
And like, why do I care about this person who's now an integral part of the team?
It's like when you know, after part 3 and then part 4 and then part 5 and then part 6, I was like, I kind of like that they have this Fast and Furious style family that keeps growing. It's like the villain from the last movie kind of becomes part of the team, and you know, they introduce new characters and the team grows. And I was like, oh, you know, I hope they bring more people back. And then Kittredge was in Dead Reckoning. And I was like, oh, who are they going to bring back next? You know, there's so many characters we still haven't seen.
I know he's always
back.
talked like that, but my only problem with Kittredge is he always talks like, what's his name from The Matrix to me? Mr. Anderson.
Yeah. No, it suits there.
Mr. Hunt.
Sounds awesome.
But my issue is with this new character who's introduced. Again, this is apparently the final film.
Yeah.
It's not like a mid film where it's like, okay, we've established a new character who will be returning, so the audience can grow a relationship.
But this is the problem:
character.
is if this is the final reckoning, and this movie is, you know, dealing a lot with Ethan Hunt's sort of legacy and how he impacted the world. And there is, like Nathan mentioned, one returning character from the first movie, which was really cool, and which we actually talked about when Dead Reckoning came out. At least I was like, oh, what if he's at the Arctic station? So I kind of called that. But I think they should have probably brought more people back, or they shouldn't have brought, you know. There's a character who's revealed to be the son of, you know, Jim Phelps from the and I was like, that was unnecessary. What was that? Well, you don't need that. It's just like one scene, and it's like, and then the character Callum's referencing, it's just like he was good in Dead Reckoning, but then he joins the team, and it's like, and then he just does nothing for the rest of the movie. And
again,
in fact,
fine if it's a middle film, because then you can grow that character and you can the audience can kind of
they're still wasting time. Even if there was another movie to come, like they're still wasting 3 hours, you know, almost 3 hours. Like Grace does nothing in this movie. Gabriel, the villain from Dead Reckoning, does almost nothing in this movie.
And he's essentially just a goon.
Yeah, he's thrown to the side very early in the film, and then you don't see him again until the end. There's no White Widow from the last couple of movies. Losing Ilsa was probably one of the biggest.
Rebecca Ferguson's character?
Yeah. Probably one of the biggest mistakes.
Yeah, but I feel like they could have...
That opening scene in Dead Reckoning with Ilsa, it's like Hideo Kojima posted about that.
Yeah.
He posted about that scene in the sand where he's like, it's Metal Gear. He's like, it's just Snake.
There is a Metal Gear quality in the last couple of movies, But I just like, I feel like they could have handled it, you know, especially with Grace being her quote unquote replacement. Like I liked her in Dead Reckoning, but she just does nothing in this movie.
I mean, it's Ethan's movie, right? I was gonna say, but I feel like Simon Pegg's character. Benji. I'm sorry. Genji's a character from Overwatch. He could have done more. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like they're positioning him as a team leader, and he's like a more experienced agent and all this kind of stuff. Yeah. But yet he's still just a sidekick character at heart, and I feel like it should have been half his movie almost.
And also because they keep, you know, because it is Ethan's movie, and they keep talking up, you know, Ethan Hunt's accomplishments and whatever, and he becomes like Christ-like. Yeah. Which, I mean, I wouldn't even be mad at, but like at the end of the movie, not really, I mean, I won't go into detail, but he basically becomes God. And I'm just like, what is this? This is not an ending. This is not satisfying in any way. It was a very strange way to end a movie.
Yeah. Especially since it's being hyped as like potentially the end of a long-running franchise.
Yeah, it didn't feel like...
I can acknowledge all of those things as correct when you say them out loud, but... Me and Alan still had a very good time.
So here's the thing:
we were reclined.
We were reclined.
So were we.
We're having a good time.
So were we.
Yeah, but
I don't know. Our seats weren't as comfortable as yours. So I'll pay
and
it.
I had no problem with the pacing myself.
Fine. Yeah.
I thought the movie was paced relatively well. I didn't mind, or some of those issues you talked about. I didn't really notice them as I was watching the film.
Look, I will say, time for some positives though. It's a beautiful film to look at. The cinematography.
I think the cinematography is a step down from the last few movies.
Still good though.
I wouldn't say good. I would say maybe okay. I think the stunt scenes look awesome.
Yeah. Well, but in my mind, I'm going to the submarine scene.
Yeah. Amazing.
That looked so good.
But anytime there's this dialogue or whatever, everything felt really weird and close up and claustrophobic.
I will notice that, anytime they have a conversation, it's like you're in people's nostrils and stuff.
And it's just like, what is going on here? It just felt really strange, especially considering, even Dead Reckoning, like, even when they're in like the Italian police station or whatever, like everything, it felt kind of grand and there was movement. And
that's true.
Everything was more dynamic. I think also the music in this one was worse than the last few movies. Like, I don't know what was going on, but...
It's funny because you say all this, like, I enjoyed Final Reckoning. It's just that Fallout and Dead Reckoning was so good.
Yeah, but I think it's not just that those movies set the bar so high. It's that this movie, other than those two major stunt sequences, is just like, it was doing a lot of weird things that it didn't need to do. Like the first hour could almost be cut out, and they could just go straight to the submarine bit, because the Dead Reckoning ends with the submarine reveal, and it's like, we got to find where the key to get the thing. And it's like, and it was like that end, and then this movie should have started with them like, all right, we got to go to the Arctic, and we gotta find the submarine. But instead, there's like an hour before that where it's like, Gabriel kidnaps what's her name, and then and then he gets away, and that doesn't even matter. And then he goes to the president, and then that doesn't even matter. So then he goes to the battleship and he talks to the captain, and him and the captain. It's like, but we don't. Who is this? We don't need it. This is not important.
There was a lot of meetings between officials and that type of thing. I will say though, the scene with in the torture chamber was awesome. I like that scene a lot.
That was fun.
Where Ethan Hunt's like, it's just pain. Whatever they do, remember, it's just pain. I was like, that's so spy.
That's fun, but it's also like, that scene was completely unnecessary. So I think also this movie was a bit overly serious, maybe. There was still their comedy moments. But especially in the way it ends, it just felt unnecessarily dour.
While we're whinging, the last complaint I've got about the film, Gabriel's bombs in this film, he uses them a few times. It's the same design, like again and again, and I thought it was visually boring. It looked kind of strange to me, the bomb design he uses.
I guess it's just like...
it's just generic bomb. That's fine.
Yeah, it's like, check it, I smuggled this huge, giant nuclear bomb into a building.
But I think the
entity... Oh, that's another problem.
Part of the message, though, is that Gabriel doesn't need to smuggle anything. He has a lot of power.
Yeah.
I will like... There's a scene where Tom Cruise's character communicates in a fashion with the entity. I thought that was a really cool idea.
Yeah, but it happens once, and then it's like never brought up again. And the entity is a non-entity. It's just, it was set up in the first movie with Gabriel being its
handler.
Yeah, or its human representative. And then but the entity was behind everything, and it was it had infiltrated cyberspace to a point where I was like, you don't know who to trust, what's real, what's not real. And he can get past, Gabriel, the entity can get Gabriel past any security thing.
True.
And then you get to Final Reckoning, and it's like, Gabriel's out, the entity has done some shenanigans, but you don't really see any of it.
Yeah, it's like, what does the entity do? Watch out, it turns a banana into a gun. You don't know what's real. It
knows Photoshop. It can deepfake a couple of things. Yeah, and you just don't see any of what... I think there could have been a lot of opportunity for it to... infest like every aspect of
just shutting down transit systems and stuff, or airports, that sort of thing.
Like Ethan and his team
playing shenanigans with flight control.
They could have done so many cool things. There could have been an interesting sequence like to add more depth to Gabriel and the entity's relationship, where you see Gabriel just going through an airport or whatever, and obviously he's wanted, but the CCTV changes his face.
Cuts, and
he like whenever he swipes his card, it automatically accepts. You know what I mean? Like you could have had a great sequence that shows Gabriel and the entity's collective
For
power.
some reason, I'm just thinking of Gabriel and the entity being like, Krieger and his AI from
Archer. His waifu. Yeah. But like, I think they also, you know, they kind of mention it in Dead Reckoning. It's just like, well, because this is a digital entity that's like all across all digital platforms, it's like we have to go analog to defeat it.
Yeah.
And in this movie, they, other than the biplanes, it doesn't really do that at all.
Yeah.
I'm like, there was so many opportunities where they could have been like, oh, we need to go analog, we need to cut ourselves off, we need to do things old school, and they just don't do that. And that's a lot of.
I think they
you
made
need Tom Cruise riding a horse.
That's right.
Yeah,
100%. It needs to go Postman style.
Yeah, there needed to when they're in the Arctic, there should have been a sled dog, a chase scene, or a snowmobile chase scene, or a shootout in the ice. And the Russians show up and then they disappear and you never see them again.
Yeah.
And I think that this script or this film would have been more interesting if it was made in the 90s, because the way they handle it's so digital. It's like, oh, we have to get the USB stick into the thing. Light spoilers.
Well, that's vague enough.
You know what I mean? Whereas, like, I feel like it would have been better if it's like, oh no, we have to penetrate some base and we have to blow up the reactor that powers the AI.
Yeah,
and then it could be like more of an action sequence with explosions rather than just the kind of drab.
The pacing of the action scenes. There should have been more action scenes paced out throughout the movie. There was no car chases. There was no quote unquote heist scene. There was no real spy stuff in this movie. There's one mask reveal.
For an American action film, there were not enough machine guns.
When there were, it's just people like, you know, hiding behind a car and then shooting and then hiding.
I know it sounds like I'm being dumb, right?
There's no dynamic action. There's no movement. There's no.
I know it sounds dumb. There needed a Michael Bay element, and it just wasn't there. Like,
yeah. Well, Fallout and even Dead Reckoning had these elements of like running and shooting and driving and flying and and they were spread out nicely across the movie.
Yeah.
And, you know, Fallout is probably the best example of like all the action scenes spread out. But this one is just like a lot of nothing happens, then a big submarine action set piece, which is great, and the knife fight on the submarine, which is cool. And then a lot of nothing happens, and then a really amazing biplane scene with which you see in the trailer where he's hanging off, and amazing stunt, but I just didn't really care. And then a just very weird ending where I was like, what are they?
Which ending are you referring to? Because there's multiple endings.
Yeah, I guess so. Like, it's
Remember
just
the ending with Gabriel part? I was like,
oh yeah, everyone.
I was like something out of Austin Powers. It was hilarious.
Yeah.
Which you were talking about,
Wilhelm or something in there.
Yeah, ultimately it was very anticlimactic.
Trillman.
Oh yeah,
so
hot right now. Yeah,
that's Captain Milkshake to you, buddy.
Yeah. I love that bit.
He's like, you want to poke the bear? I'll poke the bear.
Yeah. That's another thing. There's all these cool like Navy SEAL divers, and they're all like, all right, you know, we're gonna get you in the suit, and then you never see them again. I'm like, make an action scene with those guys where they're all in the suit and they're diving, and then there's Russians in suits and they're like fighting underwater.
Oh, can you imagine like those harpoon guns?
Yeah,
shooting those at each other underwater.
Yeah, and there's like it's like Thunderball where James Bond like gets the knife and he cuts the guy's oxygen. There's like bubbles everywhere and the guy's drowning. I'm like, could have done so many cool things and they just didn't. So
a guy out with a moray eel or something.
Yeah, electric eel shock him. You know, it was just, especially because we were looking forward to this movie so much, and it is potentially the last one. I didn't live up, and for such a long movie, like you could have done so many different things, and it's just strange that they didn't.
Now I just need to go home and watch Top Gun Maverick.
Yeah.
That's
that's a good. I mean, I think at the end of the day, like, hype can kill, because after Fallout, you know, as someone who wasn't really a fan of the Mission Impossible movies until Fallout, that movie blew me away, and then I really enjoyed Dead Reckoning. But yeah, I mean, this Final Reckoning,
Fallout's, I feel, peak to me.
I think Fallout's the best.
Fallout is the best.
Yeah,
hopping out with the parachutes, and then Henry Cavill pumping his guns.
That bathroom fight, like fist fight scene in Fallout, is better than anything in Final Reckoning. Like, it's just
I would agree.
You know, there's nothing up to that, and you know, and that's only one amazing part of an amazing movie.
Vanessa Kirby's in it, which is Chef's Kiss.
Yeah, exactly. There's just So unfortunately, it's not the worst movie, but
it's still good. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
and it feels yeah, like you were saying, it feels like a middle movie. I'm like, they need to do another one now because they kind of didn't stick to landing.
They didn't end anything.
Look, they leave it open.
Exactly, they didn't end it. Yeah, and like I said, they end it in such a way where it's like, oh, you thought Ethan Hunt was unstoppable before. Now he's just God. And I'm just like, that is such a strange way to end these movies. In such a weird ambiguous, like we were saying, like they can leave it open to more movies, but you know, it's just that all the other movies end on a sort of kind of bittersweet or somewhat nice note, whereas this movie is just ended so awkwardly and
I don't think Tom Cruise can help himself. Let's put it that way. I think there'll be another one because I just don't think he can stop.
yeah.
He's
we
like,
did
he's
talk
come
about-
out recently saying he's not going to retire.
You know what
Yeah,
I would do?
we did.
I would like him to hand the torch. I would like him, whether it's Simon Pegg or one of the
Well-
other agents, to be like, okay, Mission Impossible is going to
But this
continue.
is-
Maybe not with Ethan as
But
the
this
main
is
guy.
why they needed to bring more of the older characters back, because originally I think Jeremy Renner was in Ghost Protocol because they weren't sure if Tom Cruise was going to keep doing these movies, so he was going to hand off the thing, and then Tom Cruise ended up kept doing them because Christopher McQuarrie came on board and they were working really well together, and Jeremy Renner ended up being written out of those. And you know, and then they introduce some new characters, but then there are so many characters from 3, 4, like other team members that don't come back that could have. I feel like it wasn't satisfying. It didn't feel like we could do another one without Tom Cruise
I even
because
think there's certain characters like Paris, which she returns from Dead Reckoning in this one. They could do stuff with her too.
Mm-hmm.
She's got enough
but
screen
she's
presence.
she's underused in this movie as well. It's another, you know.
Her and Simon Pegg could be like a duo. That'd be fun.
Yeah.
Like hot and cold,
Her and
kind of
Benji,
like
Yeah.
opposite end.
He could be
ends.
like
just-
the Babs from Batman on the like the
Yeah,
and then she could be
eye
like-
in the sky.
yeah. That'd be
Yeah.
fun. See, that'd be fun.
And he's
Yeah,
got to stop
but
her
also,
getting carried away
like I
during the mission
said-
because she just wants to stab someone.
Exactly, but like I said earlier, the only reason these movies get made the way they get made is because of Tom Cruise. So if you take Tom Cruise out, yeah, you might have all these cool characters and whatever, but the studio's not going to fund the movie without a big star, and no one's going to do the stunts, and no one's going to, put the time and effort into it the way he did. So, yeah, I think...
End of an era, we'll see.
Yeah, who knows? We did... there was all those rumors, or Tom Cruise saying he wanted to actually make a movie in space, like actually go to space and make a movie.
Sounds like something he'd do.
And when we thought, is it possible that Final Reckoning, that happens in Final Reckoning, and they kept it a secret? I was like, there's no way they could keep that secret, and it didn't end up happening. But could he still make that movie?
I reckon. Look, if Katy Perry can go up into space, why can't Tom Cruise?
Yeah, but they went up for like 5 minutes.
Tom Cruise can do it.
Yeah.
He'll bring everything up ready to go. He only needs 5 minutes, in and out.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, his next film sounds interesting. Like a science fiction supernatural movie about an astronaut, Space Connection, who has to dive into an uncharted trench in the sea to find something mysterious.
Yeah, that'll be interesting.
So the movie starts in space when,
Well, he's an astronaut.
So, something goes wrong, and then
I guess
he's
is it an alien planet?
No, I believe it's just like Earth. Like
yeah,
they
so
have
I reckon the movie will start in space, and then an accident will happen, and he'll get grounded for a while. But they'll pay all the money to do that first scene in space just to make it worthwhile.
Oh, that's the one that...
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But my point being, like, I think Tom Cruise is still going to be bringing his dynamic movie star energy to whatever he's doing. So I imagine his next film, because Macquarie's doing rewrites on that as well.
Yeah.
I imagine that him and Macquarie will figure out some great looking stunts for whatever that he's doing.
Hope so, yeah. And we have talked about, like, it'll be interesting to see him return to dramas and thrillers and stuff that he used to do in the 80s and 90s that he hasn't really been doing anymore.
Something like Collateral.
And or even like The Firm or A Few Good Men. But yeah, I think we talked about, me and you, Nathan, or we talked about another episode. Yeah, I think, he's supposed to be in Alejandro Inarritu.
One of those Mexican...
Or Alfonso Cuarón, or one of those guys.
One of the Mexican auteur directors.
Yeah, he's supposed to be in that. So... that'll be interesting to see him in a non-stunt action movie.
Yeah, we'll see.
That might be the movie.
We are all out of time, everyone.
No, that's a different movie. The underwater one's different.
Hey,
the underwater one's Doug Liman, who did Edge of Tomorrow.
Oh, yes, it is. Yes,
all right, boys. We are all out of time. Sorry to be cutting you off.
No, that's right.
You can listen to the Tuesday Review on all the podcast platforms, Apple, Spotify, wherever you listen. We're also on the socials. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky, Newsmast, Threads. Not really Twitter. I'm not posting.
Delete Twitter.
And on Substack, thetuesdayreview.substack.com, at Tuesday Review AU on all platforms and YouTube.
Yep, YouTube. Follow us on YouTube.
We're on Letterboxd. I'm Nathan B_90.
I'm channeldrifter.
I'm Callum Tuesday.
And I'm Elm20.
If he ever updates it.
I do stuff occasionally.
Thanks for listening, everyone. We'll be back next week. Adios, cousins.